All right, welcome everybody to our Latina Domestic Violence Project Lunch and Learn series. It is hard to believe this is the 8th of 12 or of 11, excuse me, Lunch and Learns that we're doing this year. Just a few housekeeping things. Like I said, we are going to be recording this. It will be posted up on our Latina Project page as well as our YouTube in the next week or two. I also will be monitoring the chat. So if at any point you have any questions, something that Vanessa's talking about, you want us to pause, please put that in the chat and we will address that. I will also be sending a follow-up email after this webinar with any information, and so you have our contact information. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Vanessa Rivera. She is one of our bilingual community advocates in the Latina Domestic Violence Project. Vanessa has been with the program for a very long time and with the agency for over 10 years doing this work, doing this really important work, working with folks from the Latina population. And I know she's the go-to when I need some information. So without further ado, Vanessa, the floor is yours.
So good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you continue to enjoy your lunch while we are providing this lunch and learn. As Megan said, my name is Vanessa Rivera, and I started in the agency a while ago. And this is a passion that I have, and I hope that what I share with you this afternoon will be a great help for you and your agencies. So let's start. So let me see. I'm trying to now. So Journey Center for Safety and Healing has been around for over 45 years, providing services to those that are in need, as you see in the PowerPoint. Provide services that foster safety and healing for those affected with child abuse and domestic violence, and prevents abuse through education, advocacy, and systemic change. So at the beginning, the Domestic Violence Center was an agency, Bellflower was another agency, so we merged and we combined those services to provide a more broad service to our community through child abuse and domestic violence. And one of our visions is to re-envision a community where safety and well-being are achieved, and empowering people to find a path toward healthy, thriving relationships. So, La Latina Project Domestic Violence Center here. So is a cultural specific program that takes in consideration the realities of the Latina life, including cultural diversity and specific values. The purpose of the Latina Project is to offer services that facilitate safe options and safety for Latina victims of domestic violence and their children. So we take in consideration a lot of the values, culture, traditions, and we will be talking a little bit more about that in a bit. But we have to take that in consideration when we are serving the Latina community. And as I said, services to facilitate safe options and stability for our community. So Latina Project was an initiative of the Convención, and as everybody knows, we will have the Convención this coming Saturday. Every 4 years, they gather together in a large convention and provide to the assembly or to the community the lacks of services and the situations and everything that is going on in our Latino community. And they identify the issues, the problems, and they don't stay with only the knowledge of the situation, but also create diversity and committees that will address those issues. So we, the Latina Project, are a result of the Convención in 2004. And it started in 2006. And we are the first Latino program for victims of domestic violence. And we serve all the Cuyahoga County, that not only the Cleveland area, but all the Cuyahoga County. So it started with one staff in that year in 2006, and now we are 3 staff from different countries. And that is very important because if we are serving victims in the Hispanic community, we have to have a bicultural and bilingual staff that be able to serve them. So I am from Puerto Rico. Alicia Carrizo is from Argentina, and Patty Esparza is from Mexico. What we do, we can describe it in 3 categories. We do a lot of advocacy, and that includes justice system advocacy. As I mentioned before, we serve all the Cuyahoga County courts in criminal, civil, immigration, and juvenile courts. We also provide assistance to victims in the hospitals when there is a incident that they turn into the hospital. We are called and we assist them with the police. We assist them with the screening that they do. And at that moment, we start working with that victims. We also provide services or assistance to the police stations, especially when they are providing or doing or filing for police reports of incidents that have happened and they don't have somebody to accompany them. We are there to provide the assistance, at the same time help them through navigate the process of filing for police reports. And also we engage them and provide resources through social services in other areas of need. We also provide prevention and education. It's a huge piece also, providing parenting classes and domestic violence classes, all in Spanish. We also do a weekly support group in Spanish. It's in a safe and confidential setting. And we also provide services, art therapy, and counseling. We have a Spanish-speaking counselor, and if the victim doesn't have any health insurance, we have funds that may provide that service without them being able to pay for them. And last but not least, our community outreach, wherever there's a opportunity to speak about Journey or the Latina project, we are very hoping that you can invite us. That way we can spread the word and know a little bit more about the services that we provide to the victims of domestic violence. One of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is that when we are serving the Latino community, we have to take in consideration elements that are very important for them. So for example, if you are dealing with Hispanic families, you have to take in consideration their culture, traditions. They are very religious, the politics, because the politics are very important, because depending on the country, is the way that they manage domestic violence, the law enforcement. Many of our victims that come from distinctive countries are very fearful for the law enforcement, so they will not go to the police in order to report an incident of domestic violence, and also their immigration status. All these elements are very important because that's the way that they have experienced and view the world, and they will take it in consideration in the time to be able to make decisions in regards of leaving or getting safe or accessing services for the domestic violence or other issues. So having that in consideration is very important. That's why in the Latina project, we have the 3 different cultures from Argentina, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. And when we are helping the victims, we gather and talk a little bit about the traditions and the languages and family and everything from other lenses. And that way we can be able to help them better in their situation. Also, you have to know that language is a barrier. Even though that domestic violence and the abuse may be experienced the same in different races or ethnicities, There's nothing that maybe say that is going to be different in the African American community or in the Asian community, but there are specific barriers in the Latina community that may prevent them to access services. And one of them, and the big one, is language. And I was saying that language, uh, there is 440 something languages in the Hispanic community. So Spanish is not the only language that is spoken. So there's French, Portuguese, uh, Dutch, Creole, and native languages in the Hispanic Latino community. So one word can be in a meaning in one country, but in another country, it can have a different meaning. So making sure that you know the languages is very important to be able to provide that services to our clients or our victims. Also, we have so many dialects that because there are some native communities in the Hispanic community that we have to have access to their language. Also, their legal status. If they are undocumented or illegal here in the United States, they have barriers accessing services like housing, food, uh, being able to maintain a work or a job, access to medical services, social services. So these are very big and huge barriers that they face every day. And if the agency that you work or the setting that you are doesn't have bilingual and cultural specific programs, it's going to be very difficult to be able to uh, do services to this community that is, as you see, is very huge, and language, the Spanish is not the only language. So when I have been working with for you to have an example of the complexity and how huge the culture and the traditions and values of the family is for a victim in the Hispanic community, I'm going to provide an example of a victim that I worked a while ago. She lived in Venezuela. She was Arabic. She practiced Muslim, and she came here to the United States, got married, and she got in a very, very difficult situation with her ex-spouse. And we were providing services to her, and she wanted to divorce the partner. And we connected her with the different agencies like legal aid, and we were working with an attorney by that time, Alexandra Ruden. And when we were working with her, one day she wanted to divorce. The other day that we met, she wanted separation. And it got to the point that we got a little bit frustrated because we didn't know what to do with this victim. We wanted to help, but we saw her that she was very confused, hesitant. So one time when we met, I sat with her and made her this question. I need you to make me understand what is going on. Help me understand your culture, your values, your tradition, in order for me to help you. Because I'm trying to help you, but I'm not understanding where you're coming from. And she sat down, and that's very important when we take that time to listen to the victim. She started to explain to me how the marriages were arranged, how that day of the wedding tradition goes. And for her, the legal marriage here in the United States was not so important as important was the religious one. So she wasn't so worried about being divorced here in the United States legally, but she was more worried about getting divorced in the mosque. So And when she explained to me that she had to return the gold that was given to her as a gift, as spouse, and she didn't want to do that. And also all the effect that will carry being divorced in the mosque, then I was able to understand her and be able to help her in a way that she was safe, that I was addressing the concerns and the issues that she had, and was able to assist her with the attorney that was providing the services for the divorce, and everything like clicked. So when we have all that in consideration, then we are really, really in a good position to help these victims. Also, when we are dealing with the barriers that they face in a daily basis, that they cannot communicate with the law enforcement, that they cannot uh, get a work or job to provide for their families, or they don't have access to housing, to living condition because they don't have social security numbers, even medical that are took for granted for us, uh, having access to the social services. So how can we be able to help them? Well, connecting with other agencies and resources that are available in our community, making that connection with legal aid, Spanish American Committee, Esperanza, even a metro that has services for our immigrant Hispanic families. Also being able to connect with churches, that way we can provide them with food and clothing and other services that we can provide for them, that they don't have that access in that way. So being able to create partnerships is very important, because even though that we can be able to provide the services that they need, we have as an agency, and me being able to provide the services in domestic violence, we still need partnerships and other agencies that working together will be able to help them not return to that situation of domestic violence, and be able to provide them more access to services, uh, and being able to listen and be able to be uh, have the time to connect with the victims in order for us to understand where they are coming from. When I started at agency, I started as a volunteer, and I did not know how complex and how difficult was domestic violence. I took for granted, like, why did they stay? Why they leave? It's so easy. We see it so easy. But when we start listening to their stories, when we start putting ourselves in their shoes, and how complex is domestic violence, it's not an easy way to just get out. We can better understand them, and we can better be able to help them get out of that domestic violence situation. So when I started listening to the stories, being able to understand better, learning the ways that domestic violence happen in a family. And then I was more prepared and more capable of serving and providing the help that they needed at that moment. Because we need to learn what is it that they need in order for us to better serve our communities that we are helping. So knowing all the Hispanic places that be available for them is a plus, because that way when they have the need, we know where to refer them in a way to access the services that they need. And we have to understand that at the same time that we are not helping the victim, we are helping also the children that are also involved in this very difficult situation. Learning,
And Vanessa,
being
I'm going to interrupt real quick. I want to leave space if any folks have any questions, and I also wanted to read this comment that Raquel said in the chat because I think it is absolutely spot on. Raquel says, what an amazing way to connect with a victim, Vanessa. Listening to someone's perspective, including all of the intersecting factors of their unique situation, is such a vital step towards helping survivors heal and thrive. And that's absolutely, I think, what you all in the Latina Project do. Vanessa, would you mind going back one slide? And I want to
okay.
leave space if anyone has any questions specifically about the Latina Project before we start talking more about ways for you all to get involved. Does anyone have any questions for Vanessa? Now is the opportunity. Um, so Lauren asked the question, we know DV increased in volume and severity during COVID. Were there any unique DV impacts to Latino Journey Center clients? Vanessa, I don't know if you saw anything.
Well, as everybody noticed, the increase was there because there was no access to the services. The police were not doing the arrest because we were trying to get prevent the COVID, I guess, to spread. And we know that when the victims are in the home, that place is sometimes the most difficult place to be because if they don't have the way to get out, they're 24/7 with the perpetrator. And also the children are there. So there was a very big increase of situations in the home. But because of COVID, it was limited to the help that we had in that time. And everything was difficult for the victims. So, but still, we keep it together, especially the Latina community, because the Latina community like to be in contact, close contact. We don't like Zoom so much. We want to get in touch more, closer to each other. So even though the majority of the places were closed, we, the Latina, were able to keep the support group going on in person
Oh,
because of
wow.
that. So we did that. We limited the amount of people that can come, but we were able to keep that open because we know that in the Latino, we have to have that connection. It's not that in order to gain their trust, we have to do that. We like to be close, familiar, be able to gain the trust. So we keep that going, the support group. So that's an example that we did for our Latinas in during the COVID.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. Raquel asked, what do you think we can do to help to increase visibility? Raquel, are you asking specifically about Latina clients and the Latina Project or DV? Okay. So what do you think we can do to help increase visibility around the Latina Project or Latina clients in particular?
We have to be able to learn to listen without judging. It's very hard for a victim to come forward to express what is going on in their home, in their situation. As we mentioned before, a family is very important, and divorce is not a word that is common in the Latina community. We think that marriage is until death turns us apart. So be able to be listen to the victim, be have empathy, and be able to provide them with the services that we have available. And in order to do that, we have to be in the community. We have to engage in the community. It's not that we stay in our offices. We have to move and mobilize ourselves to get connected with the different community or agencies that are available and be able to have that information when they need it. Also, be there. Be The Latina community likes to be in touch almost 24/7. So that's why we have our own cell phones. So that way, if something happens, they are in the police station or in the hospital and there's nobody providing the interpretation services, we can be able to translate in that moment or be assistance for them. Just get to know the community. As I said, the community is a very huge community. They come with their traditions, with their values, with their food. Food is a very good piece to start. Everybody loves food, and being able to share our food is a way to engage and be able to learn a little bit more of their traditions and their cultures and their values. But at the same time, be able to connect with the different agencies and to better help them in our community and learn as I did. If we are not willing to learn and be able to get knowledge about what is domestic violence and how complex it is, we are not going to be able to help them.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And I think it's, you say that, and then also domestic violence is complex. And then like you talk about with Latina clients, there's even more barriers, there's even more complexities because of those additional barriers or things that someone's experiencing. So thank you everyone for being here.